The hologram flickered in the center of the Galactic Defense Council chamber, casting an eerie blue glow across the assembled representatives of 17 spacefaring civilizations. Admiral Jessica Thompson's final transmission played out in brutal clarity, her face twisted with determination even as chaos erupted behind her on the bridge of the GSS Invictus. "Be advised, Council," her voice crackled through the static. "The Mizadi weapons, they're not like anything we've seen before. Our shields might as well be tissue paper. There." The transmission cut to show corridors of the massive battleship, where crew members collapsed into puddles of organic matter, their bodies literally dissolving before the Council's eyes. The footage ended with Admiral Thompson's final words, "May the stars have mercy on us all." Councillor Blake Martinez slammed his fist against the polished obsidian table, causing his fellow representatives to flinch. 3 sectors lost in 2 months. The Regelian Defense Fleet, gone. The Centaurian Armada, liquidated. And now, he gestured at the space where the hologram had been. The Galactic Security Force's finest captain and her crew, reduced to organic soup. In the back of the chamber, Dr. Michael Anderson clutched his research tablet so tightly his knuckles turned white. The neural interface connecting him to his data streams buzzed with increasingly disturbing analysis results. The Mizadi weapons weren't just devastating. They were evolving. "If I may address the Council," he stepped forward, his voice steadier than his hands. The chamber's acoustic enhancement field carried his words to every corner. "Our preliminary analysis indicates the Mizadi have somehow weaponized molecular reconstruction technology. Their hydro weapons don't just add water to their targets, they forcibly convert organic matter into a liquid state. The Vexillian representative, their crystalline form shimmering with anxiety patterns, raised an appendage. Impossible. Such technology violates the laws of mass conservation. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical." Dr. Anderson interrupted, pulling up a holographic display of his findings. "Unless they found a way to tap into quantum-level energy states, look at these readings from the Invictus's final scan." The display showed complex energy signatures that pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm. The weapons are becoming more efficient with each deployment. They're learning, adapting to different biological compositions. The first attacks required sustained exposure to liquefy their targets. Now, he gestured to the replay of the Invictus footage. Near-instant molecular breakdown. Chancellor Maria Rodriguez of the Earth Colony Alliance rose from her seat, her weathered face grave. "Dr. Anderson, in your professional opinion, do we have any defense against these weapons?" Before he could answer, the chamber's emergency alert system blared to life. Red warning holograms materialized above the council table, showing a massive Mizadi fleet dropping out of hyperspace near the Proxima Centauri colonies. Multiple contacts. The security officer's voice boomed through the chamber. Mizadi signatures confirmed. They're deploying their weapon platforms. The council erupted into chaos. The Vexillian representative crystallized in terror. Several minor species delegates flooded the chamber, and even the stoic Andromedans showed signs of distress in their color-shifting skin patterns. Dr. Anderson watched the tactical display with a mix of horror and fascination as the first hydro-weapon strikes hit the colony's outer defense platforms. The structures seemed to melt, their metal and ceramic components somehow transformed into liquid by the same process that dissolved organic matter. "We need to evacuate," Chancellor Rodriguez commanded, her voice cutting through the panic. "All colony ships, all civilian vessels, everyone who can move, needs to move. Now." As the council scrambled to action, Dr. Anderson made a final note in his research log. "The Mizadi weapons represent an extinction-level threat to all known forms of life. Traditional defenses are useless. Without a breakthrough, the galaxy as we know it will dissolve into nothing more than scattered atoms in an infinite sea." He couldn't know that Earth's first contact with the Mizadi was less than a week away, or that humanity's unique biological composition would turn the tide of war in ways no one could have predicted. War Prince Xelth of the Mizgadi Empire stood on his command deck, mandibles twitching with anticipation as his flagship emerged from hyperspace near the third planet of the Sol system. His crew worked with practiced efficiency, deploying the Hydra weapon platforms in a standard intimidation formation. Everything was proceeding according to the conquest protocols that had brought them victory across 17 star systems. "Target their natural satellite," he ordered, his translator converting his clicks and chirps into galactic standard. "Let us show these humans the futility of resistance." The demonstration was meant to be spectacular, a show of force that had brought stronger civilizations to their knees. The Hydra weapons activated, their signature blue-white energy beams lancing out toward Earth's moon. Where the beams struck, the lunar surface liquefied, creating perfect spherical pools of molten rock and transformed matter. Lieutenant Amanda Foster stood in the Earth Embassy's observation deck aboard the diplomatic station, casually unscrewing the cap of her water bottle. The station's AI had already analyzed the composition of the Mizgadi weapons output. She took a long, deliberate drink while watching the lunar surface dissolve. "So," she said, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand, "let me get this straight. You're attacking us with purified water." She turned to face the holographic projection of War Prince Xelth, whose compound eyes were rapidly changing color in what the xenobiologists would later identify as extreme confusion. The prince's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Your translator must be malfunctioning. We are deploying molecular reconstruction devices that convert matter into its liquid state. Your civilization will dissolve, just as all others have." Foster took another sip, then offered her bottle to the nearest Mizgadi delegate. The alien recoiled in horror, its exoskeleton rattling. "Yeah, about that," she smiled. "We're mostly water already. Check your scanners." In the silence that followed, Commander James Peterson of the Earth Defense Force stepped forward. "Perhaps we should move this discussion to the conference room. Our scientists are fascinated by your technology's purification capabilities. Have you considered peaceful applications?" The Mizgadi delegation's collective horror grew as their biological scanners confirmed what the humans were saying. The readings couldn't be right. No species could survive being composed of so much liquid and remain stable. "Impossible," War Prince Xelth chittered. "Your bodies, they're more than 60% water. And you continue to function." "Function," Foster laughed, pulling up displays of Earth on the station's view screens. "We thrive on it. Check this out." The screens filled with images that sent the Mizgadi delegation into various states of distress. Humans swimming in oceans, children playing in sprinklers, cruise ships on vast seas, and Olympic diving competitions. One junior Mizgadi diplomat had to be escorted out when footage of a water park appeared. "This is a military deception," the War Prince insisted, though his voice wavered. "No species could evolve to be so fluid. Would you like to see our rainforests?" Commander Peterson offered innocently, or perhaps a demonstration of human swimming techniques. "We have a pool on the station's recreation deck." The mere mention of a deliberately constructed water containment facility aboard a space station caused 3 more Mizgadi diplomats to flee the room. Foster finished her water bottle and recycled it. "Look, we appreciate the demonstration, but maybe we could focus on something more productive. Our agricultural colonies could really use some efficient water purification systems. Your weapons technology, modified of course, could revolutionize our irrigation systems." The War Prince's translator struggled to convey his mix of disbelief and dawning horror as he realized the implications. The Mizgadi Empire's ultimate weapon, the terror that had brought the galaxy to its knees, was nothing more than a basic biological necessity for these humans. The War Prince's mandibles quivered. "We will need to consult with the Imperial Command about this unprecedented situation." "Take your time," Foster smiled, reaching for another water bottle. "In the meantime, would anyone like to join me for lunch? We're serving soup today." The The diplomatic station's logs would later note that this marked the first time in recorded history that an entire alien delegation simultaneously requested emergency evacuation. Or strategist Kextol's claws trembled as he activated the holographic display in the Misati High Command Chamber. The assembled military leaders chittered nervously, their compound eyes fixed on the images floating before them. None of them had slept since the first contact reports arrived from Earth. "Esteemed commanders," Kextol began, his voice modulators barely masking his distress, "our initial analysis of human biology was incomplete. They are not merely tolerant of liquid states, they require them for survival." He pulled up a cross-section of human anatomy that sent several junior officers scurrying from the chamber. "They're young," he continued, zooming in on a particularly disturbing image, "develop inside fluid-filled sacs. They emerge covered in liquids, and this is considered normal." The collective horrified clicking from his audience suggested several promotions would be available soon. Fleet Admiral Zixkar, her carapace bearing the scars of 100 conquests, leaned forward. "Surely this is an aberration, a genetic modification for warfare." In response, Stull played the intercepted footage that had kept him awake for 3 cycles. The recording showed Captain Ryan Davidson's family vacation to something called Miami Beach. The human officer, along with his mate and offspring, repeatedly and voluntarily immersed themselves in vast quantities of water. "They call this swimming," Kextol explained as several commanders began stress molting. "It is considered recreational. Their young are taught this skill from an early age. Some humans pursue careers that involve staying underwater for extended periods." He switched to footage of professional diving competitions. 2 admirals fainted. "Our psychological warfare experts are still attempting to process this information," Kextol continued, mandibles clicking rapidly. "The humans have entire entertainment complexes dedicated to water immersion. They call them water parks and public pools. Their military vessels include water storage for drinking and bathing." Supreme Commander Nixtel's exoskeleton had paled to an alarming shade of gray. "The hydro weapons, they're not just immune. They're drinking it," Kextol confirmed. "Initial reports suggest human ships are collecting our weapon outputs and running them through purification systems for crew consumption. One human vessel has reportedly installed what they call a hot tub on their command deck." The intelligence officer pulled up more footage, this time from a human documentary about something called surfing. The sight of humans willingly riding liquid formations caused widespread distress among the assembled leaders. "Most disturbing of all," Kextol continued, his voice dropping to a horrified whisper, "is their planet itself. 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water. They evolved on a world that our species would consider a liquid nightmare realm." He displayed a global view of Earth, its vast oceans causing several more commanders to excuse themselves. "They have built floating cities on these water masses. They dive into them for sport. They harvest food from them. And this," he emphasized, pulling up weather radar footage, "happens regularly across their planet." The assembled leaders watched in terror as time-lapse footage showed rain systems moving across continents. "They call it weather," Kextol explained. "Water frequently falls from their sky. Instead of evacuating, they often celebrate these events. Some humans even deliberately stand in it." Admiral Zixkar's command claw cracked against the table. "This changes everything. Our entire strategic doctrine is based on the assumption that liquid state conversion is universally terrifying." Kextol finished. "The humans have turned our greatest weapon into a convenience. Their ships now carry what they call water bottles, specifically to collect weapon discharge. One human commander sent us a thank you note for, quote, providing excellent hydration during the battle." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Generations of Mizgati military doctrine, the Empire's most fearsome weapons, all rendered obsolete by a species that treated their ultimate horror as a refreshing beverage. "There's one more thing," Kextol added, his voice barely audible. "They have something called competitive swimming. I suggest the command staff not view this footage until after consuming nerve stabilizers." As the recording began to play, showing humans racing through water, the medical evacuation alarms began to sound throughout the high command complex. The galaxy's most feared military force was about to learn a harsh lesson. Sometimes the most terrifying weapon is an enemy who thinks your nightmare is a nice way to cool off on a hot day. Major Thomas Bradley stood in the retrofitted laboratory aboard the U.S. Challenger, holding a captured Mithsati hydro weapon that now sported several modifications, including a rather incongruous water fountain spout. The device hummed softly as he filled his canteen. "You've got to try this," he called out to Dr. Emily Richardson, who was busy at her workstation. "It's like drinking straight from a mountain spring. These aliens accidentally created the universe's best Brita filter." Emily glanced up from her holographic displays, brushing aside a strand of hair that had escaped her ponytail. "The purification levels are off the charts," she agreed, pulling up new data streams. "The weapon doesn't just convert matter to water. It creates the purest H2O molecular structure we've ever seen. No contaminants. Perfect pH balance, ideal mineral content." Across the lab, Colonel Jack Murphy was orchestrating the latest test of their hydro redirect shields. The prototype shimmed with a blue-white energy field as a captured weapon fired at it. Instead of dissolving the target, the beam was caught, redirected, and processed through a series of molecular filters. "Direct hit." Murphy's voice carried over the testing chamber speakers. "Collection rate at 98% efficiency. We're not just defending against these weapons anymore. We're harvesting them." Emily rushed over to the test chamber's data console. "The energy conversion rates are incredible. We're not only collecting the water, but we're also capturing the quantum-level energy they use to power the molecular reconstruction process. We could solve Earth's water crisis and our energy needs in one stroke." "Speaking of strokes," Thomas grinned, pointing to the viewport overlooking the ship's newly installed recreation deck. "The crew's got some interesting ideas for all this excess water we're collecting." Through the reinforced glass, they could see an Olympic-sized swimming pool that had been installed where Cargo Bay 3 used to be. Several off-duty crew members were already doing laps, while others relaxed in hot tubs salvaged from luxury cruise ships. "The Mithsati would have collective heart attacks if they could see this," Murphy chuckled, joining them at the viewport. "We turned their super weapon into a spa day." Emily's tablet chimed with incoming data from the latest analysis. "It gets better," she said, expanding a holographic model of the weapon's internal mechanisms. "Look at these molecular reconstruction matrices. With some modifications, we could use this technology for everything from terraformed desert planets to purifying polluted water tables. This isn't just a defensive breakthrough. It's a humanitarian revolution." Thomas was already running calculations on his neural interface. If we scale up the collection systems, each battle with the Mithsati could provide enough clean water to supply a small colony for a year. We're not just neutralizing their attacks, we're turning them into a resource. The psychological impact alone is worth it, Murphy added, watching as more crew members joined the pool party below. Every time they fire those weapons, they're literally giving us what we need to survive and thrive. It's demoralizing them more than any conventional warfare could. Emily's eyes lit up as new test results streamed in. The applications go beyond just water collection. These quantum energy matrices could revolutionize our terraforming technology. Imagine turning Mars' polar ice caps into liquid water, creating oceans on colony worlds, all using modified versions of their own weapons. And the best part, Thomas raised his canteen in a mock toast. They can't stop using the weapons without admitting defeat, but every time they use them, they're just making us stronger. It's the ultimate tactical checkmate. Below them, the ship's artificial gravity briefly fluctuated as someone executed a particularly ambitious dive into the pool, sending spheres of water floating through the air before the gravity stabilized. "We should probably add some safety protocols to the recreation deck," Murphy noted dryly. Already on it, Emily responded, not looking up from her calculations. But first, I need to finish these blueprints for the battlefield hydration system. The Marines are requesting portable versions they can hook directly into their combat suits. Thomas took another drink from his canteen, savoring the perfectly purified water. You know what's really ironic? After all their research into weapons development, the Mizadi accidentally created something that's going to help spread humanity across the stars. Every colony world we establish will have unlimited clean water, thanks to their attempt to destroy us. The lab's speakers crackled with an incoming ship-wide announcement. Attention all hands. Today's water aerobics class in Cargo Bay 3 has been rescheduled to accommodate weapons testing. Please adjust your recreational activities accordingly. Murphy shook his head, smiling. Only humans would turn a super weapon into a public utility and a swimming pool. I almost feel bad for the Mizadi. Almost. Commander Olivia Reynolds stood on the bridge of the U.S. Aquarius, watching the tactical display as the Mizadi battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, though she noticed more than a few suppressed grins. After months of preparation, they were about to turn the galaxy's most feared weapons into humanity's most elaborate water delivery system. Multiple hydro weapon platforms detecting, Lieutenant Sarah Parker reported from the tactical station, her voice steady despite her obvious amusement. They're charging up for a full barrage. Collection systems standing by. Engineering reports all recycling systems at peak efficiency, added Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez. And Mom. The crew pool is ready for additional water features. Olivia allowed herself a small smile. Very well. Send the standard warning message. Let's give them one last chance to avoid getting wet. The message was simple. Attention Mizadi forces. Be advised that any hydro weapon discharge will be collected and repurposed. We thank you in advance for your contribution to our ship's water supply. The Mizadi response came quickly, their translator struggling to convey their mixture of outrage and disbelief. Your psychological warfare tactics are unsuccessful. Prepare to be liquidated. They're firing. Sarah announced, then added with a grin, looks like drinks are on them. The space between the fleets lit up with the signature blue-white beams of the hydro weapons, but instead of dissolving the human ships, the energy beams struck the new shield systems and were immediately redirected into collection arrays. Collection systems operating at 110% capacity, Marcus reported cheerfully. Engineering crews report our drinking fountains are now running at maximum pressure. Also, Deck 5 is requesting permission to start their pool party early. Status of the Mizadi fleet, Olivia asked, watching as more weapon platforms opened fire. They're increasing power to their weapons, Sarah replied, checking her readings. I don't think they understand what's happening. Our sensors show their crew experiencing extreme psychological distress as their weapon effects are being redirected into our ship's recreational facilities. Through the bridge viewport, Olivia could see other Earth ships implementing their own collection systems. The U.S. Neptune had already deployed its famous rain shield technology, creating a visible sphere of collected water around its hull that sparkled in the starlight. Man, Communications Officer James Wilson cut in. We're receiving real-time footage from the Mizadi command ship. I think you'll want to see this. The main screen switched to show the Mizadi bridge, where their commanders were watching in horror as human crew members on various ships began using their collected weapon discharge for everything from refreshments to impromptu water balloon fights in zero gravity. Should we activate the exterior display? Sarah asked with barely contained glee. Each human ship had been equipped with transparent sections in their hulls specifically to showcase their water recycling capabilities. Olivia nodded. Might as well give them the full show. Execute Operation Splashback. The U.S. Aquarius's hull lit up, revealing the Olympic-sized pool that had been installed along its length. The crew members inside, fully aware they were now visible to the enemy fleet, began an obviously rehearsed synchronized swimming routine. Mizadi ships are breaking formation, Sarah reported. Several smaller vessels are retreating. Their weapon platforms are. They're actually powering down. I think they're finally realizing they're just giving us a free water supply. Engineering reports all storage tanks at maximum capacity, Marcus added. We've collected enough purified water to supply 3 colony worlds for a month. The crew's starting to get creative with the excess. Someone in maintenance has rigged up a water slide between decks 3 and 4. Olivia leaned back in her command chair, watching as the mighty Mizadi fleet began to withdraw in disarray. Send a final message to the enemy flagship. James nodded, transmitting her words. Thank you for your generous contribution to our hydration needs. Feel free to come back if we run low. Also, our ship's swimming instructor asks if any of your crew would be interested in basic swimming lessons. We're offering a special rate for first-time students. The Mizadi response consisted entirely of what the translator identified as expressions of extreme aquaphobic distress, followed by their fleet's rapid departure into hyperspace. Well done, everyone, Olivia announced to her crew. I believe this calls for a celebration. All off-duty personnel are invited to the pool deck. And someone please tell engineering to stop making water slides without proper safety protocols. As her crew cheered, Olivia made a mental note to request additional storage tanks. Something told her the Mizadi would be back, and humanity's most unusual water collection system would need to be ready for another round. Professor William Harrison's presentation at the Galactic Anthropological Society was causing more chaos than any academic conference in recent memory. The prestigious Hall of Knowledge on New Alexandria Station had never seen anything quite like it, as dozens of alien scientists either fled in terror or sat frozen in horrified fascination. As you can see, Harrison continued, gesturing to the holographic display of Earth's Pacific Ocean. Humans have historically built entire civilizations around large bodies of water. We call these beach towns. The image shifted to show surfing competitions at Pipeline, causing 3 Centaurian delegates to faint. Professor, interrupted Dr. Zyklax of the Regelian Science Academy, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. Are you suggesting that humans deliberately position their dwellings near these liquid masses for pleasure? Oh, absolutely, Harrison smiled, pulling up new footage. In fact, premium real estate prices are often associated with ocean views or waterfront property. Some humans spend their entire savings to live closer to water. Dr. Rachel Cooper, the leading xenobiologist on the research team, stepped forward as several more delegates rushed for the exits. Our comparative planetary studies have revealed something fascinating, she said, bringing up a galaxy map. Approximately 90% of spacefaring species evolved on arid worlds, with surface water covering less than 10% of their planet's surface. The remaining audience watched in horror as she highlighted Earth on the display, its vast oceans gleaming blue. In contrast, Earth's surface is primarily water. Humans evolved not just tolerating water, but requiring it for survival. What most species consider a terrifying liquid hazard, we see as a necessary resource and recreational opportunity. Recreational, squeaked a Proximan researcher, their tentacles curling in distress. You mean the rumors about humans submersing themselves in liquid for entertainment are true? Harrison's response was to play footage from the latest Summer Olympics. The swimming competitions caused such a commotion that the conference had to take an emergency recess, while medical teams treated multiple cases of shock among the alien delegates. When the presentation resumed with a notably smaller audience, Dr. Cooper shared their latest research findings. We've discovered that many species' ancient mythologies feature water demons or liquid monsters. These appear to be cultural memories from their evolutionary past, when their ancestors faced threats from predators in the rare liquid environments of their worlds. Meanwhile, Harrison added, bringing up images of human mythology, Earth cultures often venerated water deities and celebrated their connection to the seas. Some human religions even use ritual water immersion as a blessing. The footage of baptisms and sacred river bathing caused another wave of exits from the conference hall. But surely, protested Professor Axvold of the Misgadi Scientific Council, who had been required to attend as part of their species' cultural exchange program. There must be some humans who share our rational fear of liquid states. Actually, Dr. Cooper replied, pulling up a new data set. While aquaphobia, fear of water, does exist among humans, we typically treat it as a condition to be overcome. We have specialized instructors who help people learn to swim and become comfortable in water. The very concept of voluntarily helping others overcome liquid-based fears caused Professor Axvold to molt on the spot. Consider this, Harrison continued, seemingly oblivious to the growing distress among his audience. Humans have developed entire industries around water recreation. We have water parks, swimming pools, scuba diving operations. Please, interrupted the Andromeda representative, their color-shifting skin stuck in a pale shade of terror. No more mentions of the scuba. We're still recovering from the last presentation about your underwater exploration vehicles. Dr. Cooper nodded sympathetically. Perhaps we should move on to discussing how this biological difference affects interstellar relations. For instance, our proposal to host next year's Galactic Scientific Congress at our underwater research facility in the Mariana Trench. The sound of mass evacuation cut her off as the remaining delegates fled the conference hall. Too much? Harrison asked, watching the last few scientists scramble for the exits. Maybe we should have waited before mentioning the underwater hotels, Cooper replied, making notes on her tablet. Though I still think we should tell them about surfing eventually. They'll need to know if they ever visit Earth. As cleaning crews dealt with the molted exoskeletons and crystalline stress fragments left behind by the fleeing delegates, Harrison began preparing his next presentation. Human water sports. From synchronized swimming to competitive diving. The medical teams decided to double their staff for that one. Chief Engineer Stephanie Walker stood in the U.S. Aquarius's main engineering bay, admiring her latest creation. The rain bomb prototype hovered in its containment field, its quantum matrices glowing with a soft blue light. She'd reverse-engineered it from captured Misgadi technology, though she doubted the aliens had ever imagined their weapons would be modified quite like this. Ready for the test firing, Commander Reynolds? She asked, patting the device affectionately. Commander Olivia Reynolds nodded from the observation deck. Engineering crews report all systems ready. Lieutenant Parker's Splash Pod Squadron is in position for the combined arms demonstration. The target was an abandoned Misgadi outpost on a nearby asteroid. As the countdown began, Lieutenant Kevin Parker's voice crackled over the comm. Splash Squadron, ready for the wet work. Remember, folks, synchronize your deployment with the rain bomb's dispersal pattern. The rain bomb launched first, its modified hydro weapon core pulsing as it approached the target. Upon detonation, it didn't dissolve matter like its Misgadi predecessor. Instead, it created a massive sphere of super-pressurized water vapor, complete with artificial storm conditions. Thunder and lightning effects are purely theatrical, Stephanie noted proudly, but psychological warfare experts insisted they'd add to the impact. Through the viewport, they watched as the vapor sphere expanded, enveloping the outpost in what looked like a localized thunderstorm. Lightning flashed within the cloud, accompanied by booming thunder transmitted through the emergency frequencies, specifically calibrated to the resonant frequency of Misgadi exoskeletons. Splash Squadron, you're up, Reynolds commanded. Show us what those pods can do. The squadron of modified fighters dove into the artificial storm cloud, each deploying their unique payload. The splash pods were Stephanie's favorite invention. Compact devices that created high-pressure water jets, basically turning space combat into an enormous super soaker battle. Direct hits confirmed, Parker reported, his voice barely containing his glee. You should see the sensor readings from the Misgadi observation posts. They're having what appears to be collective nervous breakdowns. The operation had drawn an audience. Several alien military vessels hung back at a safe distance, their crews presumably watching in horror as humans willingly flew through water-based weapons while broadcasting what Reynolds had termed appropriate musical accompaniment. "Is that singing in the rain playing on all frequencies?" Stephanie asked, recognizing the tune. "Along with Splish Splash and Yellow Submarine," Reynolds confirmed. "Morale officer's suggestion says it adds to the psychological impact." The ship's AI interrupted with an urgent report. Multiple Mizdati vessels entering sensor range. Their weapon platforms appear to be powering down. Receiving transmission. The alien commander's message was brief. "Please cease your liquid-based assault demonstrations. We are experiencing widespread crew trauma. 3 ships have already mutinied rather than face your water combat techniques. Should we show them the next phase?" Stephanie asked hopefully. The carrier U.S. Neptune just finished installing its wave pool deck. They've been dying to demonstrate how they can launch fighters through artificial surf conditions. Reynolds considered this for a moment. "Maybe we should save something for next time, though we should definitely mention it in our reply. Psychological warfare and all that." The response they sent was carefully crafted. "Be advised that future engagements may include synchronized swimming demonstrations, competitive diving exhibitions, and what humans call pool parties. We also remind you that our ships are equipped with hot tubs for post-battle relaxation." The Mizdati fleet retreated so quickly they left sensor ghosts. Mission accomplished, Reynolds announced to the crew. Engineering teams begin recovery of the water resources from the rain bomb demonstration. Environmental systems, please adjust humidity levels. I see some unauthorized water balloon fights breaking out in the lower decks. Stephanie was already sketching plans for her next invention. "You know," she mused, "if we modify the splash pod's dispersal pattern, we could probably create the galaxy's first zero-gravity water park." "Focus on weapons development first," Reynolds reminded her, though she was smiling. "We can discuss recreational applications after we've finished winning the war." "Who says we can't do both?" Stephanie countered, pulling up new schematics. "I'm calling it combat aquatics. It's like regular space combat, but with more synchronized swimming." As if to emphasize her point, the ship's speakers crackled with another announcement. "Attention all hands. Today's water ballet practice in the forward observation deck has been rescheduled to accommodate weapons testing. Please remember to bring your standard-issue water wings." Ambassador Daniel Morrison stood at the podium in the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, a glass of crystal-clear water positioned deliberately in front of him. The assembled delegates watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as he occasionally took sips during his presentation. "The terms are simple," he announced, bringing up a holographic display of the modified hydro weapon technology. "Earth will provide our water purification and distribution systems, derived from the Mizdati weapons, to any world suffering from drought or water quality issues. In exchange, we ask only for peace and open trade relations." The Mizdati delegation, now required to attend council sessions from behind specially designed moisture-proof barriers, chittered nervously. Their empire had crumbled faster than anyone expected, not through military defeat, but through the sheer psychological impact of watching humans turn their greatest weapon into a public utility. Furthermore, Morrison continued, taking another deliberate sip that caused several delegates to flinch, "We're prepared to establish what we call water parks on any interested worlds. Our engineers have already designed versions that accommodate various atmospheric requirements and gravitational conditions." Dr. Emily Richardson, now heading the Interstellar Hydroengineering Division, stepped forward to demonstrate the systems. "As you can see, we've modified the original weapon designs to create sustainable water cycles. Worlds that once feared liquid states can now control and utilize them safely." The presentation showed transformed desert worlds, their surfaces now dotted with carefully managed lakes and rivers. Colony ships equipped with massive water purification systems terraformed new planets, while modified hydro weapons served as irrigation systems for farming complexes. "The Mizdati Empire's greatest mistake," Morrison noted, nodding toward their delegation, "wasn't developing the hydro weapons. It was assuming that what they feared must be universally terrifying. Instead, they accidentally created the greatest gift they could have given the galaxy, a way to make clean water accessible to all. Lieutenant Amanda Foster, recently promoted to Diplomatic Security Chief, watched from the sidelines as several alien species cautiously approached the demonstration models. The same technology that had once sent them fleeing in terror now drew their curious attention. Of course, Morrison added with a slight smile, "We're also prepared to offer swimming lessons to any interested species. Our aquatics education program has already seen surprising success among the younger generation of Mizadi colonists." The footage that followed showed alien children, including, shockingly, some young Mizadi, learning to float in shallow pools under human instruction. Their parents watched from behind safety glass, managing their terror for the sake of their offspring's curiosity. "The galaxy is changing," Morrison concluded. "What was once a weapon of war has become a tool of peace. Earth's oceans, which initially terrified our galactic neighbors, are now diplomatic assets. We've established underwater embassy complexes, interspecies marine research centers, and yes, even some zero-gravity water theme parks." As if to emphasize his point, the massive aquarium wall behind the council podium suddenly lit up, revealing a human delegation conducting their meeting in a submerged conference room, complete with floating data displays and underwater tea service. The proceedings were briefly interrupted when 8-year-old Katie Morrison, the ambassador's daughter, entered the chamber carrying what appeared to be a water balloon. The Mizadi High Chancellor, who had been attempting to show progressive attitudes by attending without a moisture shield, immediately triggered an emergency teleport. "Katie," Ambassador Morrison sighed, "what did we say about water balloons in diplomatic settings?" "But Dad," she protested, "Commander Reynolds said it was important to maintain our tactical advantages." The incident, rather than causing a diplomatic crisis, actually helped break the tension. Several younger alien diplomats even cautiously requested to examine the water balloon, though from behind protective fields. "Perhaps," Morrison suggested, turning crisis into opportunity, "this is a perfect moment to announce our new cultural exchange program. Earth is prepared to host the first interstellar swimming championships, with modified events for all species and safety measures in place for our more hyperphotic friends." The chamber erupted in a mixture of excited chatter and terrified clicking. But notably, several delegations, including a few brave Mizadi, began requesting registration information. As the session concluded, Morrison gathered his materials, carefully packing away Katie's water balloon for future diplomatic emergencies. "You know," he told Dr. Richardson, "I never thought I'd see the day when humanity's love of swimming pools would become our greatest diplomatic asset." "Just wait," she replied with a grin. "Wait until they see the plans for the interstellar surfing competition. We're holding that one in Hawaii." The sound of multiple universal translators trying to explain the concept of surfing to terrified alien diplomats echoed through the chamber, heralding a new era in galactic relations, one splash at a time.